Dana Cypress, a police officer at the Mountain Bay County Police Station in the tiny Wisconsin town of Wausau, is the subject of sci-fi's revival. Dana and the other residents are astounded to witness the town's departed residents resurrect with all of their memories, personalities, and outward appearances intact when a miraculous occurrence known as Revival Day strikes the community. The town's residents must adjust to their new reality despite the fact that it defies reasonable thought, and Dana is forced to conduct an inquiry involving both the living and the dead after a string of enigmatic incidents. In order to achieve this, the first episode of the show, Don't Tell Dad, begins by highlighting the difficulties the protagonist has, particularly as everyone. The first episode of the show, Don't Tell Dad, introduces the show by highlighting the protagonist's struggles, particularly as everyone attempts to understand a world with new laws governing death and the paranormal. The dead resurrect in a small town. The episode opens at the neighborhood crematorium, where Randy, the operator, explains the nuances of his cremation work to May Tao, a curious woman with a camera. He puts the body in the incinerator and then backs off as she records him. The two carry on their talk while the machine works. But it ends suddenly when they both hear odd noises and movements coming from the furnace, which raise the possibility that the dead body is still alive. Soon the door of the furnace rips apart, and the corpse inside climbs out, his flesh enveloped in flames and exposed. As dead bodies start to spring to life all over the room, Randy and May retreat from the scene in a state of disbelief that only gets worse. In another scene, local police officer Dana Cypress and her father Wayne quarrel about her quitting her job and relocating to Chicago with her kid Cooper. Wayne considers this to be treachery because he is her supervisor at work and also serves as the sheriff. Wayne's phone is inundated with calls informing him that something has gone wrong in the town, forcing them to end their quarrel. Dana reluctantly consents to go out for an evening shift to see how things are going. She is shocked to see a number of deceased people emerging from their graves, semi-dazed like zombies, while riding through the town's cemetery. But because they are more perplexed than hostile, Dana and the locals have a lot to work with as they interpret everything. After a protracted quarantine period, the residents of Wausau are finally permitted to leave their houses more than a month after the day known as Revival Day, which marks the resurrection of innumerable dead persons. A friend of Dana's sister Martha, better known as M, pays her a visit in her college dorm room and exhorts her to tidy up the space, particularly now that people are free again. To get away from her friend's speech, M, however, only submerges her head. Dana uses her brief respite from work to try meeting up with a stranger at Nella's pub in order to relieve some of her tension. Sadly, her preparations are derailed when her father calls her again to ask her to check on a dead horse that a senior resident named Lester reported. Dana finds the lifeless carcass of the horse in the woods after leaving the stranger in the bar's parking lot. Lester suddenly appears to give additional background. Another element of intrigue is added when she searches the area and finds human teeth on the ground next to another dead wild animal. The protagonist leaves for work the next morning after dropping her kid, Cooper, off at school. She finds out at the police station that a new CDC employee is joining the force, a collaboration her father isn't too convinced about. Wayne tries to convince Mayor Dillish of this, but he is unyielding in his efforts to bring the living and the dead together. Dana is shocked to learn that the new guy she is introducing herself to in the office is the same guy she attempted to hook up with at Nella's. She finds out that his name is Ibrahim. Dana tries to make the most of her visit to her father's workplace by sneaking out with a case file pertaining to revivers, a term used to describe those who came back to life on Revival Day, despite an awkward encounter with Ibrahim. She notices certain names on the list that catch her eye. Something more serious is implied when Randy later stops by to inform her that the CDC men took the horse's carcass away from him. M waits outside Professor Weimer's office at her college in the interim in the hopes of speaking with him. But he ends the day by inviting people who aren't in the office to meet with him the next morning. In a desperate attempt to speak with him, M sneaks into his office. It appears like M and Weimer are having a covert connection based on the tone of their talk. He says he will see her later tonight. Dana locates a man called Miles Miller next to some train tracks after piecing together the dead horse case's details with the identities of possible revivers from the previous case file. After a brief altercation, Dana takes him into jail. "I don't know anything about the dead horse," he informs her. He did, however, spot another truck that might have been the one attaching to the dead animal. It had a tarpaulin covering its back. When driving across town the next morning, Dana finds him dozing off on a bench outside. She uses the car journey to talk about the current problems in their relationship while giving her sister a lift to her dorm. Dana says she will plan a vacation with them to close the distance, but she gets sidetracked by something on the way. Miles was referring to the truck with the tarpaulin previously. The Dittmans, who pretend not to know anything about the horse, own the automobile and the property next to it. As her sister waits in the car, Dana leaves for their barn with worries racing through her mind. We also see Wayne leaving for patrol duties at the same moment after learning of complaints from Opal Shaw's residence. He visits her home and quickly assesses her surroundings. He observes that the woman's hands are blackened when she approaches the door, implying that there was nefarious play. He enters the house and finds a dead body in the dining room, disregarding the woman's worries. In the hopes that he, too, might be like the other revivers, Opal has been attempting to will him back to life. Wayne finds the scene too shocking and recognizes the craziness of the townspeople who merely want their deceased loved ones to resurrect. Dana finds more human teeth inside the barn, suggesting that she is at the right place. Shortly after, a famished elderly woman descends from the ceiling, gnawing her teeth back to life in the hopes that he, too, would be like the other revivers. Wayne is too horrified by the picture and understands the madness of the villagers who just wish for the resurrection of their departed loved ones. Inside the barn, Dana discovers additional human teeth, indicating that she is at the right place. A hungry old woman emerges from the ceiling a moment later, chewing her teeth loose as new ones grow in their stead.